welcome back to The Watch. And there's like, She-Hulk was so bad. There's a couple of follow-up things that we want to do. And also readdress and condense some of our thoughts, because the live streams went for 3 hours and everything. So maybe we would be able to do a more condensed discussion on some of the worst elements of this show. But there's so much crap to talk about. But also new kind of perspectives as well, because when you look at like original She-Hulk and what they gave us here, it's an abomination. Like, you didn't get to share too much in the stream, Nathan. What were your thoughts on She-Hulk before?
Oh, it was awful. It was the most unentertaining. It was probably the one show that pained me to watch. Like, some shows I could zone out, at least like Wheel of Time or parts I could just, go off. Oh, She-Hulk was so painful. And also, I felt like after the episode, I learned nothing new about what the show was about. The trailers showed me more on what I'm going to get into than this first episode did.
There was, like, not even a single thing I liked in that entire thing. It was the greatest piece of crap.
Yeah.
Marvel's made.
I just remember, watching the intro, you have the whole Marvel intro, and, I still got those feelings from back in the day when Marvel was kind of good, and then you watch the show, and that feeling wasn't there.
So what I want to do a bit of a deeper dive breakdown on the worst, the greatest crime in this show, right? And that is the screaming rant that the character does against Bruce when she says she controls her anger infinitely more than him. Like, the layers of hubris and entitlement of that was next level. I couldn't believe it. And so it begins, right, where she's like, I'm great at controlling my, anger.
What's wrong, Bruce? I can do that. I can do anything.
I do it all the time when people catcall me or incompetent men tell me how to do my job. And, like, just the framing alone, right? Because in the real world, this is the thing. Both men and women can be, incompetent. Both men and women can be unjustifiably critical and mean and things. And in a workplace, like, if you want to go with averages, all right, the people that generally tend to bicker, catfight and things like that, there are stereotypes that exist in the world, right? I mean, I'm not kidding. There is a real-life account of a woman who set out intentionally to only hire women in her business, right? She had a business and she only hired women. The business went under, and her response was like she would never do it again because of the cattiness and the fighting and all that stuff. And I'm not saying women are, by no means I'm saying women are incapable of working together, but if you want to say what's generally more likely, right? Men, when they get really stuck into each other and they can't stand it, usually it'll break out in a physical fight. And what's odd, look, I actually kind of like this about guys, how the physical confrontations can sometimes build mutual respect and help them overcome differences, and friendships can result out of it. In school, high school, it happened more than once actually, where this idiot kid was just giving me a hard time. I was really getting annoyed. I snapped, I confronted him, and it broke out in a fight, He didn't land a hit on me, but anyway, after that, respect. And then he would show some actual like friendship a bit later on, and to the points where we're okay being mates. And the fact that we were able to resolve it in that way, I think, hey, it resolved conflict. Guys do that. There is this kind of unspoken understanding, okay, that doesn't exist as much, if even at all, amongst women, where certain grudges can happen anyway, right? So the fact that they framing it in such a specific way that's only men giving her a hard time already makes me go like, wow, this is already a very biased interpretation. And then there's just the conflation of like catcalling, right, as this horrible, oppressive thing,
Yeah, also, she shouldn't be catcalled, I don't think, because she wasn't very attractive in the comic books originally.
I thought you were just going to flat out say the actress isn't that very attractive. Oh, look, they purposely don't give her any favors, like the actress, in terms of the depiction.
Yeah. But like, I think for her character makes sense, because the whole thing with her was it was repressed boobs.
The boobs were repressed after the transformation.
Repressed booty. No, repressed beauty. And so when she became a Hulk, she became more beautiful, more confident in herself, and that was part of her Hulk transformation. Where in the show, apparently she's just stellar. Everyone keeps, just
Catcalling. They can't
really annoying that they find her attractive, isn't it?
But this is the reality. Like, look, if you want blatant honesty, okay, I'm sorry, she's not the type that would get constantly catcalled. She's wearing business outfits more often than not. She's a lawyer, okay. The depiction of her in the show doesn't give her any favors in terms of dolling her up and things like that. And so it just contradicts the reality of what would be. Okay.
But no, I think that rant wasn't so much her as a character saying it. It was the showrunners and writers putting in their own
but
experience.
this is the thing, right? Like these writers and everything like that. How often do they get catcalled in reality? This is them trying to latch on to, the trials and travesty that most women face. And actually, no, it's only like the better looking women and look, being honest, some of the really good looking women actually find it complimentary. I'm not encouraging or endorsing catcalling in any way, but there are some people that actually enjoy it. All right, that's reality. I'm just saying.
It's just funny, the experiences between men and women. Like, women hate it mostly, but man, if I got catcalled, it would make my day. It would make my week.
Hey,
I would write that in my journal. Be like, today I got catcalled.
On the occasion, I do get a comment from a female in my videos, giving a very complimentary, mention about my appearance. When I grew the beard out, I got a couple of new ones that were a bit more regular. It made me feel good. I mean, it's not harass. I don't know. Like, it's this to me. I'm not saying there aren't situations in which this would be uncomfortable and even many women might not like it, but to say it's all women is wrong. It's actually incorrect. And also, it seems like this push to try and find something to latch onto to complain about, that to prove how horrible their lives are. And I mentioned this in the stream, and I'll even say it here. Like, if catcalling is the worst thing in your life, you are one of those privileged people on the bloody planet. One, you must be good looking enough to actually get attention, which means you probably have a halo effect and get undue... the halo effect, by the way, if you haven't heard of it, is... It's basically statistical. It's been recorded. People treat good-looking people, both good-looking men and good-looking women, with favoritism. Flat. It's called the halo effect. It's reality. It's true. This is why trying to make yourself look good actually does have beneficial things, okay? And there might be some merit to pursuing that, taking some pride in your appearance. This is why sometimes people do encourage others to smile, because guess what? People who smile naturally are perceived as being more attractive as well, okay? And there are legitimate roles, jobs in which smiling, like salespeople are usually encouraged to smile and other things like that. And the fact that now this is considered a universally sexist thing, it's like, sometimes there might be things like, hey, you need to smile. Okay, it's not sexist. I'm not saying there isn't circumstances which it might not be appropriate, okay? But to men and women, if it's inappropriate for both men and women, it's not a unique bad problem for just women, okay? But are women, is it sexist because women are told to smile more often than men? It's like, maybe, I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if they were, because women are usually seen as the fairer sex and more attractive than men on average, okay? And if they have the ability to benefit from the halo effect, they might get encouraged to pursue that a bit more than men. So I was saying that if you're getting catcalled a lot, you're probably more attractive than on average, and that means you're probably getting the other benefits that you're not acknowledging when you're like, oh, what was me getting catcalled? It's like, probably you're getting, again, preferential treatment because of your looks to many other things. Like, even job preferences often go to more attractive people and stuff. Like, some people are literally hired for the purpose of their looks. Models.
Yeah.
Like, their entire career paths completely constructed around the roll of the dice and the genetic lottery that you lucked out on. It's just
customer service as well. When I went to McDonald's, they put all the men in the back, all the boys, women at front and through drive-through. Women were more approachable, and so they just had the women do all the customer interactions. And I would be like, can I work register? No. You belong in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Get back, make me some burgers.
Get in the back, in the kitchen, man. this is the thing, right? This is what I guess extreme activists and stuff I don't, like to acknowledge, that people are different, and the world is different, and as a result, there is going to be preferential treatment, and sometimes it's actually not only needed, it's beneficial and necessary. Because I think, for instance, handicapped people do deserve preferential treatment and finding like a disabled parking spot.
Yeah.
Okay, right? That's not equality. You say I pure, unadulterated equality is a complete fallacy. Okay, and this is not an endorsement of things that are actually bigoted, like affirmative action, everything where they inject unequal treatment. All right, equality of opportunity, great, awesome. Equality of outcome is, oh boy, does that lead to some horrible things. But that's what. Why is this related to She-Hulk? Because She-Hulk is a feminist wet dream, an extremist feminist wet dream, and they're all about equal treatment. But if you want to, like, any sign that feminism is actually not about equality, it's about female supremacy, take a look at She-Hulk, okay? Look at the treatment of the female characters versus the male characters, okay? Look at the comparison that this character makes between her and Bruce Banner, a guy that has legitimately gone through hellish trauma. His attempted suicide, right? He's been hunted by the government, homeless, like all these things. And this vile cow has the gall to attack him and say she needs to control her anger infinitely more than him. This one scene encapsulates this new She-Hulk series and reveals it as one of the most vile pieces of media I think I've ever seen. And the reason why and when people say it's not really like you, what about horrible things? The reason why this makes it so vile is because the creators are oblivious to how vile it is. They unintentionally think that this is a great thing. The character is great. They believe the character is completely justified in everything that she's doing. That's what makes it so damn vile. All right, the actual belief in hubris that's underlining it all. So she says, incompetent men, so catcall incompetent men, and then she goes on to say, and the fact that if I don't control my anger, I'll be accused of being emotional. Yeah. Like, that's the same for guys. Now, I know they're trying to play on the stereotype that women are more emotional than men and hysterical, but hang on. Women are, on average, more expressively emotional. That's not a sexist stereotype. That's reality. It's recorded. The thing is, though, men are as emotional as women, but how they express it is differently. Men, on average, internalize emotions. Women, on average, externalize emotions. It is more common for women to cry than men. Flat. That's not a sexist thing to acknowledge, okay? But again, this push that, women being accused of being emotional and all that stuff is sexist is like, no, hang on. Sometimes it's a benefit that women are more emotional, okay? Because that's the other thing. Then the feminists attack men. You should be more emotional, but how dare you accuse us of being more emotional than you, even though we're acknowledging we are more emotional than you by saying you need to be more emotional.
And then when we are emotional, they go, no, stop, please, stop crying. No, I don't handle this. Whoa. No, stop, please, I didn't mean it.
And then she goes to the extreme that, like, she says, called emotional, something, and then she might legitimately get murdered if she's emotional.
What do you think happened with Bruce Banner when he put a gun to his head? Or when he was running from the government? Or when he was fighting Thanos?
Like, I can't believe this. Like, she is trying to claim the false, reality that her life as a woman is so horrible that there's a very likely chance she'll get murdered if she ends up being somewhat emotional. Like, that's the framing she makes, right? And it's not even true, but even if it was, vastly unlikely. And on top of that, no context is given that her life has ever been threatened at all. She's just claiming the likelihood of it possibly being threatened if she acts emotional.
Yeah, it makes no sense because as viewers, we haven't seen anything in her backstory that would promote...
No true oppression in this woman's life.
No.
But, the catcalling, the horror, right? And she's doing that against Bruce. She's saying, like, that is not only equivalent, infinitely more than Bruce's experience.
And the whole episode, Bruce is just sad that his friends are dead.
I do not endorse hitting women, but oh boy, she makes you want to. I'm not endorsing it.
Well, when they started having a fight in the episode, I was like, oh, okay, Bruce is going to show what for.
No,
they just break the bar. And then he gets sad.
In terms of initiating, Hey, also, this show is so damn oblivious. They're so oblivious to it, right? Where they're trying to put a narrative that men are more violent than women, right? Do you know the only in this episode, the only person that initiates, actually lashes out in violence against someone
Is her?
is her.
Yeah,
She punches him uncalled for. She actually literally goes to punch him. Oh, look, he shoves her off a cliff. But is that... I don't know, like, you know...
But also, she's been quite bratty before then.
Yeah. But to me, a playful shove that was a bit snarky is different to a full punch in the nose, right? And you can say, look, she knows they're not going to hurt him and everything. But if the narrative that men, violent, bad, and then they're actually... they're so oblivious to it. They're oblivious to their own bias and bigotry, where they think it was perfectly justified her to full on try and punch Bruce when Bruce was trying to get her to listen to something really significant and important. Oh, by the way, she was trying to leave. He was stopping her, but then he loses all his power and she can ram him and knock him into a thing. But also, by the way, like, there's layers to it all. Because people will argue he was trying to take away her freedom, but it's like she's a walking, nuclear bomb. Might be appropriate just to make sure she can control her powers before she leaves.
There's also the whole blood thing that we discovered as
well.
well.
Oh my goodness!
If blood's toxic or evil, or if someone takes hold of it and can make
not only
a weapon.
It's established that Bruce's blood, so inference is her blood, is that has lethal doses of radiation upon contact. That one contradicts certain canon because, yes, Stan Lee, when he drinks the drink, he gets sick, but they said he survived. That's, by definition, not a lethal dose of radiation. And he ingested the blood.
Yeah.
Well, now they're trying to say just the blood dripping on someone.
And the way that she gets her powers as well is...
do they know what radiation is? Radioactive material.
I don't think so.
It sends radioactive rays outwards. So, going back again, breaking down that scene, and then she has astronomical. What's truly infinite here is her infinite arrogance and hubris, to say that she controls her anger infinitely more than Bruce. And look, she's losing her anger in this scene, and people say, but then she brings it under control by her own volition, but that doesn't change the fact she's losing her anger and changing in that scene as well, contradicting her great control.
Meanwhile, Bruce is just chill, taking it all the whole time.
And so this character, let's try and summarize her. She is a massive, I guess, victim poser, I would say. Like she, nothing has truly victimized her. And even the scene where they try and say the guys pursued her, right? All they did was follow her against her will for a short duration, okay? And yeah, I am, I'm giving probably the guys a more generosity or charity in the interpretation of the scene than perhaps they deserve. Yet the thing is, though, I'm also trying to read it from the scene, and they didn't show any indication that they were going to do bad things to her. They said, how you doing? We're nice. I don't hang out with us. We're just being nice. I think was what was the final.
There was
line.
no real danger to react to yet.
Yet
It could have led to it, but there was
nothing to
trigger
because
her
when
response.
she transforms, they make the guys look like pussycats. Where they hug each other and scream in panic. To me, that's not the reaction of hardened rapists and stuff like that. They make them seem like they were just drunk goofs. And even by the context of the scene and show, it's not depicting like these guys are gonna do bad stuff. All right? And so that's the most oppression we see depicted. Getting catcalled, pursued against her will by a couple of drunk guys when she is wearing makeup outside of a bar during ladies' night. Mixed messages. Okay? And then that's discounting the fact that it turns out she was in complete control and she transforms and lashes out ready to kill him and is only stopped by the Hulk. So, she's almost guilty of attempted murder. And like they say she can control her rage. She's so good at controlling her anger. Yet when she transforms into the Hulk, right? Her Hulk form, she lashes out angrily, causes property damage, she wrecks her thing, breaks off the door, throws the door. None of that was all excessive. She could just push the door aside with her strength, maybe bust a couple of things. She chose to rip it off and then chose to throw it aside, go, rah! And we find out in that moment, you can try and argue that she didn't have as much control previously, but in this moment, you can't argue that. She had full control, and she is lashing out angrily without control. And you want more evidence that she can't control her temper when she transforms later and she punches Bruce and tries to fight him. This is a lady not in control of her powers or anger at all. Contradicting this bullcrap, arrogant, self-inflating, I know I got flagellating wrong in the stream, I admit, okay, I was wrong, self-inflating thing, right, of I control my anger. Nearly everything in this episode is contradicting this grandstanding. And it just makes her so loathsome. This is one of the most loathsome, entitled, bratty characters I've ever seen. It's amazing. And we're just giving one example. We've got 3 hours of live stream talking about it more. But this is just one example.
I even just think of characters who may have been arrogant or, big-headed in other Marvel, like with Tony Stark. But he had a backstory as to why he was that way. And in the movie, within the first, 15 minutes, you had character development. Yeah. When he was taken captured and then realised what he's done and there's a development. In She-Hulk, there's no repercussions to any of her actions. She just does what she wants. In the end, she goes, and I was right, Bruce is wrong. This is great.
I know. And the thing is, she can't pull it off like Robert Downey Jr. He could pull off charm while being arrogant.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, she's not pulling off. She's just making herself look like an absolute cow while being arrogant as well, and entitled, and all of that. And with Tony, it always came off as a bit of almost self-deprecating arrogance, where he had his issues. He knew he had his issues. And that was always undertoning this bravado that he put on the surface. And there was a bit of a balance as a result, because we know that he is so self-critical.
Yeah.
Like, there is no character in the MCU that is more self-critical than Tony Stark, and yet he is this massive narcissist, yet he's critical and hates himself. Do you see the balance? We don't get that with this character. Not in the slightest. So, we mentioned that, compare this to the original She-Hulk, right? I'm going to give a great example, but other things about She-Hulk was that she was a campy, fun, lighthearted character that was made for teenage boys. That was the audience, right? And so, but not only, like, even with that, even with the fact that the audience were, by the way, if they did this interpretation, the audience would be huge for She-Hulk if they just copied it over. But that's problematic. You can't have a character be made to appeal to men. That's sexist. When you look at, like, the flick scene with Chris Hemsworth.
Immediately, I thought of that scene.
Can't have that. I was like, oh, but you're perfectly fine men appealing to the female audience with your cheap crap, That's what She-Hulk was, and they were self-aware of it, and it became a success as a result. She was a fun, sexy character, right? But not only that, there was actual depth with her, good writing, and this has come up on the internet. Contrast this to the She-Hulk TV series. It's night and day. It's unbelievable. And so, from context, this seems like her shortly after being transformed. But at the very least, she's talking with Bruce about it. It starts out with this, right? I am a victim no longer. Like, already, we're at night and day, where this one is going out of her way to claim victimhood status. I'm being catcalled, and I've incompetent men telling me how to do my job and everything like that. It's such an, disempowering message that so much of extreme feminism pushes, right? To take away the empowerment of women, to make them into victims who just, whine and complain and look for victimhood when it's not there. I'm not saying women can't face things that are uniquely problems to them. I think they can, just like men. It's actually quite a balance when you really look at all the issues both men and women face by virtue of them being men and women, okay? So I'm not saying that's not impossible to find, but also both men and women are living in the most privileged place of society ever, all right? And so privileged that there are women who are legitimately facing true bigotry and sexism in the world, not being allowed to drive, always having to cover their heads, everything, all those things in many parts of the world. And if the only victimhood, one of the few victimhoods you can find is by catcalling, it's like, that's a sign that your life is pretty good. This, I am not a victim. She-Hulk specifically says, I am not a victim, right?
First 5 words, just
bang. I fight back. As the She-Hulk, I'm an aggressive, positive force for good. So already, she is embracing the power she has to do good as She-Hulk. When this first episode of She-Hulk, she wanted none of it. She has the power to do such tremendous good, save lives at no risk to herself. As a Hulk, she is invulnerable to even most superhumans, right? And she would have none of it. She says, I will help people in my way, which is selfish because it's helping people at a vastly lower scale than what she could achieve with complete ease. She could achieve saving countless lives with far less effort than being a lawyer. And there are lots of people who can be lawyers and help people out in those realms, but there's very few people who could help people out and save people in the way that she's capable of, and she doesn't acknowledge a thing of it. It's disgusting. She doesn't want, she's like, it's all about getting back to my life, I want to be a lawyer and all that stuff. And what's so frustrating is Hulk, where the whole episode is trying to explain this to her, and she won't have a bar of it. The original She-Hulk, this is how well written she was. Completely inverse, where she sees that she's a positive force for good as She-Hulk. Okay? And then look at Bruce Banner's like, you don't blame me for what I did to you. This is in that... Look, it's so much better done. Because originally, she was in an accident. Hulk wasn't in the accident with her. Bruce Banner came to her and saved her by giving her a blood transfusion into her. You see the progressive writing on the wall with how they did it in the show. Because... in the show, she actually saves him.
Yep.
Okay? Because you can't have a man save a woman. And by the way, there's this rule book. Nerdrotic mentions that he's seen, like these rules, and it exists in Marvel, Disney, and all that stuff, which is almost explicitly saying, black and white, you cannot have a man mentor a woman. You cannot have a man rescue a woman. Stuff like that. It has gotten that extreme. And I haven't seen proof of it, except for the actual media coming out. Because this is exactly the same, where there was a previous established canon which explained everything, and they purposely changed it to not have him save her, have her save him, and accidentally get her blood on her as a result. She didn't need saving. She wasn't injured. It was an accident that happened to her, and Bruce didn't do anything to save her, nothing about that. And she didn't need mentoring. Everything Bruce tried to teach her, she already knew. Clearly nailing at all these things. The insufferable, just entitled Mary Sue of it all. It's just unbelievably crap. I can't believe it. And so that's She-Hulk. They can't have him mentor and everything, but the classic, he saved her, and then there was a good arc where he thought he was cursing her with his curse. Actually, he might not have known that this would happen. He was trying to save her, and then she changed, and then he felt he cursed her, and he made a mistake. And look what she says. I don't blame you. I'm trying to tell you that I'm so grateful I could kiss you. I like being green, fighting villains, and being an Avenger.
The comparison.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
I don't want to be a superhero, I want to be a lawyer. I like my job.
Oh, my goodness. And she's like, I'm grateful that I could kiss you. But again, she can't have a woman benefit from the actions of a man. They're that possessed in Hollywood and the world right now. They are that sexist. Because that is a sexist standard that they are pushing to the point where they are ruining characters, and they are, any person that learns to adopt these types of viewpoints from this show, like current She-Hulk, is going to just get a warped and horrible view of the world and become an awful person. The show is trying to frame that this is a sassy, justified character when she is an absolute entitled brat. Don't be like this character. Use it as a cautionary tale, if anything.
Have some humility.
Oh my goodness.
Please.
And look, and she goes on, cousin, we're not monsters. We've got a great gift, the power and ability to do good. I love this because, one, it's being consistent with that Bruce at this time, because granted the Bruce in She-Hulk series is past the fact that this is a curse where his life is great now, which makes him a far less interesting character. But there was a really good dynamic here that she was actually trying to tell him, we're not monsters. This is actually something, and this is where she is appropriately helping him out.
Yeah.
Okay? And then she says, we have the power and ability to do good. Again, original She-Hulk saw this as a chance to do good. This current TV show doesn't want to use her powers at all to do good. People, even in the courtroom scene, she is reluctant to help. Lives are at stake in front of her. The only person who's other superheroes in the world who's there right now, okay? And she decides to run and hide first and then needs to be convinced to help. And her chief concern about helping is that it's going to ruin her dress.
I really like this dress.
Oh, gosh. But original, yes, she was actually a considerate, thoughtful character. She continues to say, I thought you understood that once you were able to control the change. He says, I tried, but it's hard. Then she says, Of course it is. After all you've been through. Yes, of course it is after all you've been through. But you have friends who will stand beside you no matter what. And she puts her arm on her shoulder, showing the support for Bruce as well.
See, this panel, she shows more support for Bruce's struggles.
An acknowledgement of his struggles. Like, of course you have, after all you've been through. She's acknowledging what he did. Or in the show, she dismisses it all and becomes like, I'm more infinitely more than...
And then even, he's talking about his friends. He goes, Captain America, Steve Rogers, Iron Man. Mm-hmm. And she just goes, yeah, he was a virgin, wasn't he? The man's lost his best mate.
This character...
Console him a bit.
This character in She-Hulk belittles so many of the legacy male characters in Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
Bruce, there's the line where, superheroes just for narcissist billionaires, like Tony Stark who sacrificed his life to save the universe, and then teasing Captain America for being a virgin. This character is despicable and vile. And what's amazing, this is the result. Compare the difference. Like, this is an assassination of the character She-Hulk from the comics to such an extreme degree. It's one of the worst character assassinations I've ever seen. I can't believe it. And we have been just focusing on one scene, referencing other scenes as well, but I can't believe it. I can't believe it. It is astounding how bad She-Hulk is. So much I can't wait for episode 2. Look, it's dumpster fire, but again, we're here for the ride. You know why we're here for the ride, Nathan?
Why are we here for the ride?
Because that's what we do here. We always stay on watch.